this piece, I want to talk about you guys that are growing a healthy portfolio. So you are likely to be heading towards inheritance tax territory and therefore potentially a significant tax bill. If you don't know if that's you, then the very first thing you should do after this video is make a note to look into it, to investigate whether that is likely to be you. It's not difficult to be growing a portfolio in 2023 and get to a point where you're likely to be paying inheritance tax. So if you understand what might be happening in the future, then you can mitigate that now. And there are various ways of doing that. And here's just one way. I'm not saying it's the only method. There are other ways, but there's a type of life insurance policy out there that is designed, actually, one of its main functions is to provide a lump sum so that the executors, the beneficiaries perhaps, can have a lump sum to pay your tax bill. So it doesn't get rid of your tax bill. It pays out enough from the life insurance policy to pay the bills so that it doesn't come out of the asset itself. And indeed, can you imagine if it did? I've seen in some cases where the beneficiaries actually have to sell part of the portfolio to pay the tax bill. Now, how do I know that the life insurance policy will pay out? Because the name of it is whole of life policy, which is a bit of a clue. So unlike the life insurance policy that you're likely to have right now, the policy that you probably have in your drawer gathering dust today is going to have a finite date. It's going to have an end date. And I'm going to guess that that end date is likely to be around your retirement date, maybe 60, 65, 70 years of age. That life insurance policy will end. And it ends because it's done its purpose. You will have taken that policy out because the risk of you dying during your working life is that you're going to leave either a spouse, you're going to leave a larger mortgage, or perhaps dependent kids with one less income, and you don't want to leave them saddled with not only one less income but mortgage debts. So hence there's a lump sum for your spouse or partner to be able to cope with life without you. But as you get to retirement, that risk tends to have diminished. You should have paid your residential mortgage off. The kids have flown the nest, etc., etc. There's no need for that policy. But this is a different purpose. So a whole of life policy will just keep running. It does not have an end date. Therefore, it will pay out. 100% guaranteed it will pay out because of the nature of the beast. So then if it provides that cash lump sum. Now, if you own the properties in joint name, I'm going to say there's a husband and a wife, then you take one policy out and both your names are on there. And as it says on the third bullet point, it's taken out on a joint life second death basis. In other words, when person number one dies, this usually, and I'm going to give you an example shortly, usually there's no inheritance tax liability at that point because all the exemptions, all the allowances can transfer to your spouse. And it's on your spouse's death, the second death, that the IHT liability is likely to occur. And that's why the policy is set up on a joint life second death basis. The final thing I want to mention about the policy, and I'm going to get into an example so you can I'll bring it to life for you. These are guaranteed premiums. So I don't know of any other good or service that you buy that doesn't go up with inflation, whether it's mortgages, whether it's a tin of beans or something in the middle. Over years, inflation kicks in and you pay more. This is the exception to that. So when you're given a premium by your advisor, the premium you're going to pay today will be the premium you're still paying in 10, 20, 30 years' time. In other words, the perception will be, well, the reality will be, because normally your income's going up, So it will appear that this life insurance premium is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because it's relative to your income coming in, because hopefully you're getting pay awards, or if it's portfolio income, your rent's going up, year on year. This is one element of expenditure that is absolutely static for the long term. So I think it's worth mentioning. Now, let me give you an example so you can see it coming to life. So let's assume that we've got an estate value. Look, it's not property, it's all items as well. But, let's say you've got £1.5 million worth of estate, and that includes the family's home. Now, without turning this into an inheritance tax workshop, the government allow each individual an allowance so they can have up to £325,000 worth of asset, above which you're liable to inheritance tax. I said a little earlier that when the husband dies, that allowance can pass to the wife in my example. So the wife now inherits the husband's allowance. So she now has £650,000 of allowance. If you want a family home, there's another £175,000 of allowance each. And if you do the maths, that means there's £1 million worth of asset that you can have, and only above that figure do you essentially become liable for inheritance tax. So on that simplistic basis, we've got a £1.5 million value. We've got £1 million worth of exemption. So the estate here is liable for inheritance tax on 500,000. Inheritance tax is 40%. So the liability for the beneficiaries in this case is £200,000. And remember, if you've not put anything in place, if you've not even thought about it, there's no planning in place, then somehow the beneficiaries have got to find 200,000 quid, which unless that's in liquid assets, then you've got to sell things. Is it mum and dad's home? Is it part of the portfolio? You're going to have to sell enough to release £200,000 and then pay that tax bill. So the beneficiaries, in your head, when you were planning this, you thought your beneficiaries would have £500,000, and actually they're going to end up with 300,000 because that 200k is going to HMRC. So let's say you take out one of these policies, and the client now, the missus is age 50 at this point, at the start of the policy. I took a little look. Average lifespan of a UK female is 83 years of age. So on average, she will die by the time she gets to 83. She will need this policy for 33 years. The premium is £246 a month. Remember, it's guaranteed. So although it sounds perhaps a little bit expensive right now, over time, that 246 will be cheaper and cheaper because it's absolutely fixed in stone for 33 years. And if you think it's expensive, just wait till I get to slide 3. So this policy is guaranteed to pay out £200,000 because we've already figured out that's roughly what we think the tax bill is going to be. So if you then work out, well, how much would this policy cost for 33 years? And the answer is at the bottom of that slide. It's £97,416. So you thought £246 a month was expensive. Therefore, you must think £97,416 expensive. Well, I want to pose an option to you. Which option would you like to take me up on? Do you want to pay a bill of £200,000 because you put nothing in place? Or do you want to pay £97,000 out instead? To me, it's a no-brainer. That means I've essentially halved my tax bill, and my beneficiaries have saved in excess of £100,000. Now, you might say, okay, Richard, you work in averages here. You know, our family's lifespan is longer than the average of 83. They might live a little longer. But do the maths. The break-even point at which you can then say, I should not have taken out this policy because it would have been cheaper to just pay the inheritance tax bill, is, I'm doing the maths here, 9,303 116 years of age. So if you can say with some certainty that you're going to live to 117 or beyond, then ignore this completely. Hats off to you. Enjoy your long and healthy life, and you do not need to worry about a whole of life policy being the strategy to mitigate your inheritance tax bill. But on average, that's unlikely to be the case. So I think this is a serious thing you should consider. I really made this as succinct as I can, obviously, for today, and it will raise a whole lot of questions. So what I want you to do, if you think that you might end up in IHT territory, then give us a call. Book an appointment with our insurance advisor. There'll be a link at the end of this piece. Just type that into your address bar. It'll take you to our online diary. Click on the insurance advisor option, not the mortgage advisor option. Book some time in with the insurance advisor, and we'll go through this type of policy, and then you can make some decisions with a bit more certainty.